professionals who will screen all day long as they need to. Women who are in the outskirts of Ghana and the villages, etc., who can't access hospitals, etc. We cannot house these containers with mammography machines, but what we can do is to make sure we do needle biopsies, take the samples to the labs if we notice any defects or any lumps. We can actually also have an ultrasound machine in there.
Ms. Amwa, with support from La Villa Boutique Hotel in Osu, is appealing for funds for the purpose. A surgeon at the breast cancer unit of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Dr. Florence Dede, said breast cancers are not preventable, but the risk factors can be controlled. She entreated women to screen regularly. A radiation oncologist and advisor to the Minister for Health on non-communicable diseases, Dr. Bafwe Wa, said poverty and stigma are still the reasons most women do not seek early treatment. He encouraged the men to also screen for the disease. Cyril for GBC News, Accra.
With 6 to 7 persons killed daily from road crashes in the country, the Ghana Road Safety Authority and the Motor Transport and Traffic Department of the Police Service continue to educate the motoring public on how to minimize road accidents as Christmas approaches.
Statistics in the third quarter of 2021, 11,857 road accidents have occurred, claiming 2,126 lives. These reports are from the Motor Transport and Traffic Department, MTTD. In an exclusive interview, GBC News, the Communications Director of the National Road Safety Authority, Madam Pearl Jesse, said indiscipline on the part of road users and weak enforcement are the major causes of these road accidents, and culprits get away since some authorities connive with them.
Weak enforcement is also a major factor for road safety management to be complete. As an agency is educating and promoting road safety through sensitization, awareness creation, campaigns, publicities, and advocacy. There is another agency that is supposed to enforce whatever standards the National Road Safety Authority has put in place. Most of the time, when these people are apprehended or they are caught, they are let to go, because even in our country, there is a culture of "I beg you." He's a brother of a big man, he's the driver of somebody somewhere.
Madam Pelchisi appealed to policymakers to construct dual carriageways to minimize head-on collisions, which claim lots of lives. She later called on all to support the efforts to minimize road accidents in the country.
Dual carriage roads do not promote head-on collisions, and we know that most of the times head-on collisions that make a lot of people die, because these big buses will collide head-on and a lot of people will die. Accidents have been increasing because there is influx of a lot of vehicles in our system now, and so the roads should be expanded to accommodate the number of vehicles in the country. So we appeal to policymakers that they should look at dualizing our roads.
Also, the Operations Director of the Motor Transport and Traffic Department, Superintendent Dr. Sasu Mensah, cautioned all not to give bribes to the police and vice versa. He said the police has in place an electronic system as well as being there physically to arrest road users who flout road traffic regulations.
If you are caught within the word of receiving gratuity or any form of bribe, then the laws will deal with you. But remember, the crux of the issue is that the one who gives and the one who receives, both of them are at fault. So what we advise drivers is that thou shalt not give, and thou shalt also not receive.
About 300 officers of the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, has graduated from the Customs Academy at Spetoy in the Agotemeziopa district of the Volta region. The Commissioner of the Customs Division, Colonel Retired Kwejo Damwa, charged the officers to work hard at their various duty posts to help the GRA realize its year's revenue target of 60 billion Ghana cedis. In all, a total of 287 senior and junior officers graduated during the passing out ceremony. The new officers include 79 senior cadets and 208 junior cadets who enrolled at the academy in March this year. They all passed basic paramilitary training and customs courses. The commandant of the GRA Academy, Junior Apia Warden, administered the oaths of allegiance and office. The commissioner of the customs division of the GRA, Colonel retired Kwejo Damoa, reviewed the parade and conferred on the senior cadets the ranks of assistant revenue officers. He entreated the new officers to accept postings to any part of the country and make themselves more accessible to excel in their duties. Colonel retired Damoa said the GRA is trailing in its revenue mobilization and therefore considers the entry of the new officers strategic as it completes the last quarter and expects to attain the 60 billion Ghana cedis revenue target for this year.
We have no time to spare. And you are not going to have the luxury of having more 3 days. Go and help in this last minute effort to collect every possible person so that we can achieve and possibly exceed our target.
Cadet officers who distinguished themselves during the training were honored. Ernest Frimpong Opoku was given the overall best senior cadet, while Michael Ishan emerged the overall best junior cadet. Senior cadet Nana Sechiwasa Akodie, who commanded the parade, also received the best in drill and best female trainee. As the Glasgow Climate Change Conference Week 2 opens, leaders have called for an end to climate injustice against the poor and most vulnerable who are paying the price. The call was made at a ministerial meeting on adaptation.
Every fiber of society across the world is already reeling from the impact of climate change. It has triggered droughts, floods, melting glaciers, heat wave, diseases, food insecurity and migration, with the world said to be at crossroads. The chief executive of Global Center on Adaptation, Mr. Patrick Fokoy, said Glasgow is the final platform to repair the climate injustice created.
The impacts of climate change are at our doorsteps today. Thousands of lives are lost today and millions are impacted today. We have heard ministers here on stage and other panels before. Finance flows and adaptations are not sufficient yet, but we are increasing our ambition in that regard.
Former UN Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon said the world must act with a sense of urgency and move from climate vulnerability to climate prosperity. The president of the Africa Development Bank, Mr. Akiwumi Adesina, said Africa could lose $50 billion to climate change by 2040 from the current $7 billion to $15 billion. With this, the bank is doubling its climate financing for Africa to $25 billion.
The African Development Bank and the Global Center for Adaptation launched the African Adaptation Acceleration Program. Our goal is to raise $25 billion for adaptation. It's the largest, the boldest, and the most transformative climate adaptation ever put forward for Africa.
The chief executive of the Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. Henry Kokofu, said major emitting countries must rethink the emissions policies for a safer planet.
Because we are already living inside a worsening climate emergency, ambition raising must now encompass adaptation as a major priority. We have a battle on two fronts, and we need to constantly and also accelerate adaptation action to keep us safe.
The ministerial meeting on adaptation seeks to create a climate-resilient environment with innovative programmes to protect the people, economies and ecosystems.
Members of the Volta Regional Caucus in Parliament have appealed to the NADMO to release more relief items to support the 350,000 households who were affected by the tidal waves in the Keta South and Anglo constituencies. They are also calling on the government to ensure that the second phase of the Keta Sea Defence project begins to protect the people on the coastal belt of the Volta region. Our parliamentary correspondent, Homo Kalsum Abdullah, joins us live from Parliament House.
Hello, Seko. I'm right here in Parliament. This morning there was a heated argument. The members of Parliament from the Volta side of the country. Their challenge is that they've always been receiving sympathy from policymakers, from government, but the actual action to put an end, a permanent end to this problem, has not come through yet. If you remember, the set up see the first project, the first phase was completed in 2019, but unfortunately it's not enough to bring an end to this problem. So the members of Parliament are appealing to government because they're tired of the sympathy, we are tired of the promise to want action. I have right here with me the member of Parliament for South, Madam Different Domestic, to talk to us more about it. Madam, what actually is the problem that your people are facing? Well, thank you very much. I think that we have spoken on many platforms, including yours, about the fact that the community that help people protect themselves. So both farming and fishing, and then going to the border, crossing the border for anything that you can do to make a living. In the last 2 years, and especially this year, we've gone through a lot of because of the tidal wave. This year, the first one was in May, and then it happened again in May, and now in November, we've had a wet storm. What it has done is to bring the people to their knees. Many people have their homes lost. I recall that in May, I did indicate that should it happen again, the thing will be on the street. And I'm sure the videos are found now, and you cannot testify to the fact that is exactly what I said. That's what has happened. But I surprised that this is not being looked at as a crisis that needs urgent attention from the state. I recall that in March when it happened, I had to pull resources and support from the members of Parliament, my caucus, to help me to go and give some relief. In May, government brought some relief, but as we speak, all the other things that were said to us during that period has not materialized. One being looking for an opportunity for them to have a temporary shelter. That has not been done. We appeal then that the Sea Defence project be continued. The Minister for Works and Housing came to Parliament to answer questions on same. He indicated that he will be coming to the constituency. He did come and reiterated his promise that by the end of the year, there will be some effort made to continue with the Sea Defence project. As we speak, it's November. What's been done? Who is willing to tell us exactly what government wants to do? Who is willing to tell us that? You know, the rhetoric is not useful. The promises are not helpful. What we need are concrete measures, concrete steps that are being taken, that are tangible, that we can see. We live there. So if anything is going on, we are the ones who will testify and say, this has been done. So it's just an unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in, of people not knowing what to do for themselves and the state not responding to their call. There was an argument that the sun winning and illegal activities on the seaside is probably a contributory factor, and the sea defense will not do much if these activities still continue. What's your argument about that?
Situating sun winning in this context is very unfortunate. It was unfortunate for the Member of Parliament to make that assertion. He has no evidence of seeing trucks in Tues South
If it's happening in other communities, I'm not arguing about that. But what we're dealing with in Tues South is not as a result of sun winning. It's as a result of global warming and the inability of the state to continue with the sea defense project. That is what the problem is. So mixing these excuses and what's happening in other constituencies with ours, it was unfortunate. It was unfortunate.
Right now, what do you want from government?
You know, I think that the constitution of the country and all the conventions that we have signed are sent to the SDGs, promoting life that is lived in dignity, demands that when people are at a crossroads as we find ourselves now, the state has to respond. What is the short-term response? What's the medium-term response? And what's the long-term response? Let us know and carry it along. Keep us in the picture. What is it that you want to do? We don't know what you want to do. You keep saying that you are going to do it. How long would it take you to make it effective? How long would it take before we see signs that indeed the sea defense is being constructed? Constructing a sea defense is not something you can do in the dark. It's rather in the open. If it was going on, we would be hopeful. As it is now, I don't know where to keep the people whose homes have been lost. As we speak, Ghanaians know that 275 of us in this house have not received the common fund that we are entitled to carry on with our work. So the state must intervene. The state must provide shelter, it must provide food and clothing for the people whilst we wait for the big projects such as the building and construction of the sea defense. That's what we're expecting. We're expecting leadership to act. We're expecting to hear His Excellency the President speak to the people and reassure them. He can't say he hasn't heard that.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
Thank you.
So, you heard the Honorable Member of Parliament for Tues South. For now, they want action. They want action from government. And also a statement on that effect was read on Parliament, and the Speaker has referred it to the Select Committee on Works and Housing. From Parliament House, Umu Abdullahi, GTV.
Thank you, Humo, for that report. And we've been joined on the phone by the Acting Voter Regional Director of NADMO, Mr. Ebenezer Azuma. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us on News Hour. Good afternoon, sir. We're trying to establish contact with the Acting Voter Regional Director of NADMO, Mr. Ebenezer Azuma, to give us details on the displaced people in the Volta region due to the tidal waves. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you so much for joining us on News Hour. You're still watching News Hour live on GBC News and GTV. We're taking a short break. Please stay on. morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling healthy.
And there's much more on offer on GTV Breakfast.
So what's your pleasure than Votras at that time of the morning?
You want it served buffet style, complimentary breakfast?
On-site restaurant.
Or room service?
We've got you.
Be fed and survive and grow.
Madame Dufay disclosed that 3 additional newborn care units will soon be opened at the Salaga, Chirponi and Lerigu hospitals. Whilst commending UNICEF and its partners for the support, the management of the beneficiary hospitals highlighted transportation for outreach programs as one of the challenges confronting them.
The Food and Drugs Authority, FDA, has launched what it calls a street food licensing scheme. The authority is moving into an era of no street food vending permit, no business. This, it says, is to ensure that all street food vendors comply with good hygienic practices to protect public health and safety. Speaking at the launch of the scheme, the Chief Executive of the FDA, Mrs. Delise Dakun, said street food micro-industries are vital for the economic planning and development of many communities. She said street food can be plagued with problems of contamination due to poor hygiene, including unsanitary vending locations, inadequate vending structures, and improper food handling, as well as lack of monitoring and therefore the need for regulation. A pilot project has been held at Klote-Kole municipality with the first batch of vendors issued their street food vending permits and complaint stars. Our news team was on the streets of Accra to ascertain the level of compliance by the food vendors.
We already have the yellow card which was given to us at the hospital to be able to sell food, but I haven't heard any information concerning food license.
It's a good idea. So long as we are bringing this idea, we have to put things in order so that we can do whatever they are required of us. It will worry in some cases because we are not earning a lot from these businesses.
If only it will help our business, we will do it.
The authority should come out and explain the license for us well.
5 students of the Konongo Dumasi Secondary High School have been remanded into police custody for their roles in the death of a student of the school by the Konongo District Court. They are expected to return to court on November 15 on a provisional charge of murder and abetment of crime. The police on November 6 arrested the 5 students for allegedly stabbing a first-year colleague to death. We gleaned the thoughts of the Executive Director of Child Rights International, Mr. Bright Appiah, on this disturbing incident. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to News Hour. Good afternoon, Mr. Bright Appiah.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us on News Hour.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
First of all, how did you receive the news of the stabbing to death of the student by colleague students?
Well, it's a sad event that took place in the school, and I think that we should not condone some of these acts. Anything that we can do to prevent some of it, we should be able to do it.
So would you say such disturbing incidents in our school is a reflection of societal breakdown?
Well, partly we can say so. I also think that the systems that we have in place in monitoring the activities of our children are not strong enough
Therefore, when they exhibit excess behavior, we have a system to check those behaviors. So they live it as a normal life, to the extent that we have also legitimized some of these things that they do in schools and all that. So some of these are bound to happen if the systems are not really working effectively.
So according to the reports, the student was stabbed with a knife. So will this be a case of negligence on the part of the school authorities?
Of course, once the child has that knife, it's a weapon. So if you don't know how children will use some of these weapons, then you should as well, by policy, prevent them from having access to some of these materials and all that. You do elsewhere. These are the control mechanisms that they put in place. But if we cannot do so, we think that a child can have a knife, a child can have any kind of things in their dormitory or wherever they get it. I think that is a system issue. This is preventable, but it's unfortunate that you have to go through this.
Many believe the growing indiscipline in schools is as a result of the directive to halt corporal punishment in school. Do you share this view?
Well, I differ from these things, because once you talk about discipline, in most cases people feel that the punishment system that we have is not working, but it's not discipline. Punishment is totally different from discipline. So if they are talking about punishment being led in our schools, then we understand. But where disciplinary actions are being taken to let children conform to certain rules and regulations, we can also enforce that, but we don't think that it's appropriate to say that because we are not punishing children in school, that there is less discipline in school, because we cannot equate discipline to punishment and say that these things go together. Certainly not. So we need to separate what we do that would constitute punishment and what would constitute discipline. And if you feel that we don't have enough examples to showcase when it comes to disciplinary actions, then the system must enforce or put in place some of these things so that children will conform to it. But if you equate punishment to discipline, then it's a different discussion altogether. And so I don't want a situation where we box all together and think that there is indiscipline in our schools because we are not disciplining our children in the name of punishment.
So in this case, then, how do we then restore discipline in our schools?
To restore discipline, there are so many ways that we can do that. One of them has to do with the systems that we put in place, especially the code of conduct and how we make students to understand the principles of the code of conduct. They having a full understanding of things that pertain to the environment. Once we do that, then we put them at a certain level. Secondly, we reduce the effect of children having access to certain information that are relevant to their development while they are in school, or having access to materials that are not relevant when they are in school. So when we do all this, I think that we will control the human behavior. These children are coming from different backgrounds, and where parenting will play a role, and we have left that gate open that parents decide on what they want to teach our children. So when they come to the school environment, the only thing that can guide them is a system that responds to the protection of children in that environment. So if you also lose it, then it becomes a playground for them to do whatever they want to do. So if we want to ensure effective discipline, system is very, very important, and when we set it, we comply. And when that is done, I think that we can reduce some of these things.
All right, thank you so much, sir. And that was Mr. Bright Appiah, and he's Executive Director of Child Rights International. We've also been joined on the phone by the Acting Volta Regional Director of NADMO, Mr. Ebenezer Azuma, to tell us more on happenings in the Keta municipality. They were struck with tidal waves and thousands were rendered homeless. Good afternoon, sir. And thank you very much for joining us on News Hub. Good afternoon, Mr. Azuma. We're still trying to establish contact with Mr. Azuma, but when we get through, we'll talk to him so he tells us more on what is happening in the Volta region, specifically the Keta municipality. It has become evident that the only way for the Ghana Geological Survey Authority, GGSA, to win itself of government subvention is to explore new revenue mobilization avenues. This is the charge given an 11-member board of the Ghana Geological Survey Authority, which was inaugurated in Accra.
Do in the name of
the newly constituted board was tasked to channel more energy into operationalizing the community mining initiative to generate viable conception for the Minerals Commission. This is the government's response to tackling galamsey with the aim of creating thousands of new jobs in host communities lawfully under the purview of the Minerals Commission and exclusively for Ghanaians. The chairman of the new board, Mr. Philip Yaojo Amwako, pledged to leverage on the vast expertise of members to accomplish its objectives. Speaking with GBC News, the Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. George Miriku Duka, entreated the board to make informed decisions on geoscientific issues concerning mineral resources, groundwater, environment and land use planning. Members of the board include Dr. Daniel Boama, Professor Patrick Komla Agbasinyale, Mr. Lawrence Apalse, Mr. Richard Kofi Ejay, Mrs. Dorothy Efriye Ansa, Dr. Bob Alpha, Mr. Jacob Malko Kutu, and Madam Asantewa Nkansa.
You're still watching News Alive on GBC News. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with the business segment. Please don't go away.
Good afternoon. We get updates from the business space now. My name is Morris Ogbete. Now, transport operators will on Thursday embark on a sit-down strike in demand of removal of levies, margins and taxes in the fuel price. They want Finance Minister Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta to scrap the energy sector levy, energy recovery levy and sanitation levies as he reads the budget on Monday.
Government has to reduce some taxes for all Ghanaians to be relieved. And if the government do not do that, we'll park all the cars on Thursday, 3 o'clock, all cars will be grounded.
Until when?
Indefinite. You see, as I said, we'll park the cars from 3 o'clock. Friday, we are not going anywhere. Saturday, we are not moving. Sunday, we are not moving until something is done on Monday in the budget.
Also in business, from 1st of January 2022, all ECOWAS countries will implement the new common external tariff as the old tariff guidelines and versions for individual countries expire.
The Common External Tariff is one of the principal instruments for harmonizing ECOWAS member states and strengthening its common market. The expiration of the old tariff requires the gathering of customs officers of member states in Accra. The GIZ trade facilitator at ECOWAS, Mrs. Rosemond Danso-Asante, said the operationalization of the ECOWAS Customs Code is being considered in the development of relevant regulations governing customs in the region.
Presently, the implementation of the ETLS has improved. The number of approved companies and products has increased by 38% and 41% respectively from October 2018 to September 2021. Additional tools such as the ETLS website, e-certificates, and a monitoring mechanism have been